Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Salakia. Call hello Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, Bahashim Rakakwadash. Of course, double honors once again go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who continue to teach us His truth and are out there on the highways and byways just like all the rest of us, per Isaiah 30 and 20 about our teachers, all right? This is Naaman of the DC camp, and lo and behold, I dug this up a long time ago. And you have to wonder after watching this, at least I did, after bringing out all this information, what happened to this guy? Now, as it says here, this is from 68. If I was a betting man, I would say this is right after King was assassinated. So you're looking at after April 4th, 1968. Sometime. He brings out all this information. And believe you me, he was a marked man after this. All right. They just, took notes. And then, unfortunately, it would appear that he started believing his own, hype after this. And from this point on, 68, all the shows he did, all the stand up and all that, all the movies. And then you get to the 80s, and then you have this, with the Cosby Show and all that. He wanted to buy NBC. And of course, I'm not saying that this is specifically why they didn't want him to have it, but makes you wonder. All right, his son being murdered. All these things started to happen, and I was thinking of, even though he's not doing what we're doing specifically, with the scriptures and everything, still, you got to think about Amos 5 and 10. He was rebuking these motherfuckers. All right, let's go. And of course, they didn't want that. He's bringing out all these things that these devils have done. This is Amos 5 and 10. It says, they hate him that rebuketh in the gate, and they abhor him that speaketh uprightly. It still applies because stuff like this is a shame to them, because as he's going to, when I start this, he's going to explain that a lot of the stuff they purposely kept out of the history books. These devils did. And we all know that now. And the question remains, why? And you have to understand that, like I said in a few of my other videos, the late Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, from here in DC, she wrote the book, The ISIS Papers. And she made the comment years ago about, how the white man has gone all throughout the world talking about how he's superior and all this. And it dawned on her that someone that's continually saying that to themselves, in all actuality, they have a serious inferiority complex. And this whole thing that the nation of Edom does, a so-called white man, he knows he comes up short when when dealing with Jake. They are always trying to validate themselves, with us. Believe it or not, they're always looking for that nod of approval. If you really look hard enough and long enough, that's what they're doing. But hey, your fate is written in stone no matter what you do. All right. You can borrow that from what is that? Jeremiah 17 from verses 1 and 2. But let's go ahead and play this, and I'm gonna try to stay out of it and just let you hear. Okay.
Of black history, lost, stolen, or strayed. Charlie Brown, you're
Never fit in that. Never get in that at all. This is more like it. Now, what's the whitest thing you know? Whiter than the driven snow, whiter than the whites of your eyes? Sugar. Non-integrated, non-black, sweet sugar. But you see, there is a black man in your sugar. His name is Norbert Rillier. Norbert Rillier in 1846 invented a vacuum pan that revolutionized the sugar refining industry. Now, you have to dig to find that fact. I mean, it's not much history, but it's still history. Now, what do you stand in? In your shoes. Now, there's just you and your shoes, isn't it? Nope. See, there's a black man standing in your Oxfords with you. Sharing your soul and your heel is a man, his name is Jan Ernst Metzelliger. And in 1863, this is a drawing by the kids, Metzelliger invented the machine that made mass-produced shoes possible. Now, you have to dig around for that fact, too. And again, it's not much history, but it's history. Am I coming in clear to California? I mean, is this TV signal driving through a pass in the Sierra Nevada mountains and slipping into San Francisco? Okay, well, I want to thank you, Jim Beckworth. Jim Beckworth out of St. Louis, hunter, trapper, and honorary chief of the Crow tribe of Indians. We had trouble finding you, Jim. Though you helped open the West, you didn't make the books. Chicago, right here, where the Wrigley building is. Young fellow by the name of Jean-Baptiste de Save. Jean Baptiste. He founded you, Chicago, when he traded with the Indians. And of course, there it is right there, that particular time. It was called Chicago or Stinking Onion by the Indians. And de Save, he didn't even change the name at all. Now you take the Lewis and Clark expedition here, right in there. You'll find a black man named York helping to open the West. Those men are trying to wash the black out of York. That's what you might call historically significant, because a lot of people think we ought to wash white, but we ain't gonna, you see. Texas. Coming to you, Texas. Right down the Chisholm Trail, right here. Right down there with 5,000 black cowboys who never made it to the Hollywood Western. Did you know that? Huh? In this same group, there was one black outlaw. His name was Deadwood Dick, who claimed his soul brothers were Bat Masterson, Billy the Kid, and Jesse James. Deadwood Dick used to ride into the saloon, order 2 drinks, one for himself and one for his horse. And here's his horse, drinking a shot of red-eye with straw. And how about the 186,000 blacks who fought on the Union side during the Civil War? 38,000 died. How about Teddy Roosevelt's charge up San Juan Hill? It wasn't just the Rough Riders who made it. 4 black regiments went right up with Teddy. They didn't get lost going up the hill. They got lost in the history books. How about the North Pole? Snow White? Well, the first man there was black.
And if you remember the movie back in the day with, what's his name? His father was he played, what was the movie? It was what is his name? I can't believe I forgot the guy's name. Let's see. I cannot believe this. I think he directed or produced New Jack City. Hold on. All right, that was 91. Let's see. Mario Peoples. Okay. Let's see his filmography here. Oh man, let's see. course, his father's, I think, just passed away not too long ago. Melvin. Let's see. Um, Posse. That was it. Posse. They went into that. I can't believe I forgot that. That was '93. They used to ride, according to the plot here. They rode with. They were part of that so-called black regiment that rode with Teddy Roosevelt. If anybody remembers that. All right, continuing on.
Matthew Henson. He spoke Eskimo. And he was Admiral Perry's navigator. And although he made it first to the pole, it never quite made it to the history books. And how about your heart? Can we get there? All right. Daniel Hale Williams first performed open heart surgery successfully. This list could go on forever. Blacks who made it, blacks who made history, but who didn't get into the history text at all. And the strange thing is how little there is about us in the textbooks. Napoleon once said history is a fable agreed upon, and the fable agreed upon up to now is that American history is white on white. But sometimes we did get into the history books. All wrong. Now you take this one. The Growth of the American Republic, 1942 edition. Samuel Eliot Morrison, Henry Steele Commager. Quote, as for. This has to do with slavery. As for Sambo, Professor Morrison. Sambo, Professor Commager. As for Sambo, whose wrongs moved the abolitionists to wrath and tears, there is some reason to believe that he suffered less than any other class in the South from its peculiar institution.
Which is?
Peculiar institution means slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Although brought to America by force, the incurably optimistic Negroes soon became attached to the country and devoted to his white folks. Unquote. Those lines were written by two Pulitzer Prize-winning white Northern professors. Slavery. That's the place everybody likes to start Negro history. You have ignorant black men being brought over from Africa in chains. Terrible thing, slavery. But this way slavery is taught, it sort of takes the sting out of it. Because the way it's usually taught, people think that we Afro-Americans started with nothing but little grass skirts like the kids in the Tarzan movies.
Mm-hmm.
And though America gave us slavery, America kindly gave us religion and a lick or two of education. And when we get more jobs and more education, then up from slavery. But we had something before we left Africa, something more than rhythm. I mean, we had a high culture. Culture was so high that great artists in the world are still borrowing from it.
Let me stop it before he goes on, because a common misconception, that they still try to hang on and try to promote, is that we were African or Hamites, and we never were. That's the thing. And that's why we're out there on the highways and byways telling people no. And we're showing them, if you look things up, if you bother to look things up, you're going to find this stuff out. All right? We were never. It's not just because everybody thinks of the continent of what's known now as Africa, all right, that it was, everybody there is so-called African, and that's not the case. We as a people were refugees there. We fled there, all right? All dark-skinned people are not the same. They know this because a lot of your Elamites, your so-called East Indians and Pakistanis, they're as dark as we are. But you don't hear them call them black. Letting you know that's something that's directed at us, and it's not good. So we need to get out of calling ourselves that too, because come on now. Continuing on.
Now here's a sculpture by an unknown African artist. And here's what Paul Klee took from it. And here's a work by an unknown black African. And Pablo Picasso liked what he saw. another African design, and Modigliani swiped it. Or he was influenced by it, or whatever polite word you want to use. Another black African artist, and Picasso didn't change it very much. I mean, when you look at this copying, you got to give us a little more than rhythm. You got to give us style. Now, if you tell the history of slavery right, you got a big problem on your hands. The slave trader didn't take some savage out of Africa. He took a human being, sold him like an animal, and separated him from his family.
Exactly, and we are still in their hands per Exodus 21 and 16. All right, we are still in their hands, and there's a penalty for that. All right, and this is something that they can't get out of. That's why they're trying to steal. I mean, it's a little late now, but this is something that they did not want to get out of for the longest time. You have to understand, these elites, their biggest weapon was their secrecy. They were the ones pulling the strings and manipulating shit from behind the scenes. They had all their minions, all right, performing functions for them, all right. But now the curtain's been pulled back to where everybody now, you know, and everybody knows about the Illuminati, all right. They still try to, you know, like, oh, you know, that's, you know, hanging on to that conspiracy theory shit, you know. But no, these elite bankers, they're scrambling. They're scrambling now, all right. That's why you're having this thing over there in Ukraine being pushed so hard, all right, because they need a war. This is more or less a wag the dog situation they're trying to pull, all right. They need this, all right, because this is about, they don't want their slaves, you know, getting away from us, which if you took that juice, hey, a lot of people are coming set up, you know, they, with their Bluetooth and everything, they've seen these weird, like, codes pop up, and it's them that are the product, stupid fucks. All right, so in any case, let's get back to the video.
America invented the cruelest slavery in the history of this state.
Yes. And all you got to hear now, especially this time of the year, is that hollow hoax bullshit. Yep, here we go.
That's some awful history to teach. If you want to look history right straight in the eye, you're going to get a black eye.
There you go.
Because it isn't important whether a few black heroes got lost or stolen or strayed in America's.
And you have to ask yourself, what has changed since he did this? Not a whole fucking lot. All right, which lets you know that this is their program. They've been, you know, they've been running for a very long time, and it's this program, all right, people are waking up, enough people are waking up to the fact that they have to make a change, all right? And this is something they're being forced to do. Trust me, if we were still asleep, this shit be going on for who knows how long, all right?
History textbooks. What's important is why they got left out. Now, this country has got a psychological history. There was a master race, there was a slave race. And though there isn't any political slavery anymore, those same old attitudes have hung around.
Yep.
I mean, the burning part of burn, baby, burn is right here in this classroom. We want to thank Mrs. Lovely Billups and the whole gang here at 4th grade for the brilliant and intelligent artwork that they've done here to make this whole broadcast sing. I want you guys to keep pretending that I'm not here. You're doing a great job, and just keep on drawing and reading and writing, doing what you have to do, because I'm going to talk about some other kids. Not you, Mary, John, and Bob. These are kids from other schools. Did you know in some states it used to be against the law to teach blacks to read or write? Nowadays we're getting these integrated schoolrooms, and most people think that if we get enough teaching and enough jobs, everything is going to take care of itself. But there is a scar of history running right through kids as young as these. It tears you up. You if you know how to look at drawings kids make, because kids shouldn't know much about history and anything about discrimination. I mean, nobody hates little black kids, but why do some of them cause so much trouble? And if you ask black and white children to draw themselves, or trees, or houses, some strange things happen. We asked some ordinary white kids from ordinary families to make some drawings for us. Like, well, let's call him John. John's white, and we asked him to draw himself. This is John. This is his house, and this is his tree. Then we asked a black kid, let's call him Ralph, to do the same thing. This is Ralph's drawing of himself. This is his tree. Now, why should two kids of the same age draw so differently? Enter the expert. This is Dr. Emmanuel Hammer, psychiatrist specializing in children's therapy.
Let me illustrate it for you. Let's take these drawings. No matter what a child draws, he's really picturing himself. Ask a secure child to draw a tree, and he's likely to draw a bountiful, spreading tree. A black child drew this tree, cut off in its growth, stark, bare, ungratified. It works the same way with drawings of people. Normal children, average drawings. The mood is happy, the child feels capable, the drawings are complete, and the arms are developed to emphasize strength. These children were old enough to draw complete figures. The significant fact is what they left out. Arms, hands. A child may sense that a situation in life is so powerless that he himself is equivalent to an armless man. My own study reveals that armless people appear 3 times more frequently in the drawings by black children than those by white. The faceless beings suggest that these youngsters not only feel themselves to be less than they might be, they don't even feel themselves to be. The black child who is forced to live in a hostile world may disappear in self-defense. He drifts through life feeling like a shadow. He stops caring, and he stops trying.
And they knew this. This just wasn't by happenstance. You got to understand, we've been at war ever since we were first landed over here. And this was done. All these psychological war tactics, that's what they are, all right? This was done on purpose. That's why you have all these sociopaths, all right, that evolve from the hood, all right? And this is what he's getting into.
A child who has this on his mind cannot be a child. A child who has this on his mind could want to burn down cities when he gets older.
The whole confusion was summed up by a black 9-year-old in these 2 paintings. This is a 9-year-old boy draws a white man, Robin Hood maybe. And this is how the same boy draws himself. And this is the consequence of deformed history.
Linda, close the curtains. Brian, lower the screen. Bonnie, lights please.
In the past 50 years, 33,000 feature films have been made in the United States, and about 6,000 of them have had parts for black actors. For the most part, the black portraits have been drawn by white writers, white producers, and white directors for a white audience. Most black parts were the way white Americans wanted them to be. The black male was consistently shown as...
And this is where he gets into what these devils did and helping to, well, orchestrating rather, how the black man was perceived and then how the black woman was perceived, and they played on that.
Nobody, nothing. He had no qualities that could be admired by any man, or more particularly, any woman.
When the sun goes down, the tide goes down, we dog together and they all begin to shout, hey, hey, Uncle Doug did feed the
White people didn't like to think much about them. Sort of like a relative you got in a rest home. I mean, happy darkies, dancing and singing was all they wanted to hear about. Being good Christians, the whites out front liked to think the blacks out back were kind of happy. Uncle Tom's Cabin was one of the first movies made that tried to say anything about black people. Uncle Tom was changed a little each time it was put on the stage, and all the parts were played by white actors, and by the time They made a movie of it in 1903. Uncle Tom was just the white man's idea of a good nigger. You might say he was what H. Rap Brown ain't. They made this picture 5 times. By the time they finished with it, Mickey Rooney could have played Uncle Tom. Minstrel shows started as the black man's entertainment for himself and the plantation owners. When they were filmed, though, they were done by a white cast. You figure that out. They were done as sort of a joke, and the black entertainer couldn't even get a job making fun of himself. The first really vicious anti-Negro film was called The Birth of a Nation, and it was a honey. And the second worst thing about it was that technically, in 1918, it was the best movie that had ever been made. A cat named D.W. Griffith produced it, and he knew how. See? Birth of a Nation pretended to tell the story of the Civil War and what happened afterwards when the slaves were freed. White women couldn't walk on their own sidewalk, if you believe the picture. In the South, Negroes got the right to vote, and the movie showed black vote collectors refusing to accept white votes, and black people sneaking in extra votes. And if these black bad guys don't look very bad to you, it's probably because they're white actors.
And this is what we also always told you. See, this is how their media in all its forms aided, all right, in the perception of us. All right, and when you look at, you think certain books, I know one in particular that comes to mind, where the press aided in the lynchings of us is 100 years of lynchings, where Ralph Ginsberg, he collects all this information. It's mostly like newspaper clippings, you know, how it's worded, you know, black brute rapes a white woman or some shit like that. They just, you know, they just helped further our affliction, more or less. All right.
Wearing burnt cork. Negro legislators took over in the South, and in the film they were made to look like apes. This was the movie version of how it looked in the Southern state legislature. They drank whiskey. They ate chicken with their hands in the State House. And they put their feet up on the table with the shoes off. And of course, they passed all sorts of crazy laws according to the film. Like anybody could marry anybody they wanted to. It was obvious to anyone who saw this picture that Negroes weren't fit to govern themselves or anyone else because they really weren't people. This film is 50 years old, and it may look silly and out of date now, but it didn't look silly when it was made and seen. Several million Americans who saw it were propagandized to believe that this is the way things would be if they weren't careful. So they've been pretty careful. Colonel Cameron, a former officer in the Confederate Army, is all upset over the way Northerners and the freed slaves are changing his South.
Watch this shit.
Taking a mint julep right out of his mouth. So he takes a walk one day while he's worrying about it, and he sees 2 white kids playing, then 4 black kids come along. Being hardly human and naturally afraid of ghosts, the black kids run. Colonel Cameron sees the whole scene, gets his great idea. And with this, that great white all-American organization, the KKK, was born. Cavalry and the bedsheet has come to the rescue. The South is saved. In this picture, the Ku Klux Klan was the good boy who saved the South. Most Hollywood films, though, even the early ones, weren't really nasty. Nobody was sitting around saying, hey, let's take care of the niggers.
And it's something you have to understand as a result of all this, the daughters of, what was it, the Confederacy. It's like the saying goes, the South lost the American Civil War, but they won everything else. And when you think about it, that's true. They were successful in making the South, making people feel sorry for them. They were responsible, the daughters of the Confederate in specific, with altering the school curriculums in the South that contributed in that. All right. So yeah, legislation, all the things that came up as a result. All right. Hey, like I said, they want everything else.
What producers were doing was making money. To make money, they made pictures that white ticket buyers would enjoy. They showed Negroes the way most Americans like to think of them. To blame Hollywood is like throwing a rock at the mirror because you don't like what you see in it. Burt Williams was one of the great vaudeville performers. He couldn't get parts in white pictures, so he made a lot of short comedies. He played the part most Americans consider typical Negro. He wasn't bad, really, just lazy, stupid, and happy the way he was. And his feet hurt. He was afraid of most everything. And when he was scared, he shook and his teeth chattered. Unlike a scared white man, the black man's eyes could pop out of his head. When he was scared, he was so scared he couldn't talk. He was also so scared he couldn't run. Black women, on the other hand, were steady and imperturbable. They stood like a rock on the face of things that scared black men.
Starting to see.
Another strange physical characteristic was when they were really very scared, the guys turned white. When you look back on these old films, the patterns come jumping out at you. The most consistent thing about them was the attack on the black man.
There you go.
He was never even given the privilege of being a man. He was a boy, as in, you know, here boy. They had a lot of other great qualities besides being cowardly. For instance, they stole chickens.
Who's in there? Who's in there? Ain't nobody in here but us chickens.
They shot craps.
That's your papa talking to you now. That's come on. Just hit it one more time.
And lions weren't the only thing they were afraid of either. They were afraid of gorillas.
Wonderful. Is that you next to me? Wonderful. Is that you next? Now come on, Wonderful. Now don't turn around. Come on, tell me the truth. Is that you next to me? Wonderful, please say yes, that's you.
They were also afraid of ghosts and skeletons.
Yeah. Is that you scratching my head? Yeah. Yeah. Now come on. Now what are you looking at?
What's your hurry, Buzz? Even when they were little boys, they had these characteristics. Farida in our gang was the boy. The tradition of the lazy, stupid, crap-shooting, chicken-stealing idiot was popularized by an actor named Lincoln Theodore Monroe Andrew Perry. The cat made $2 million in 5 years in the middle 30s, and everyone who ever saw a movie laughed at Steppin' and Fetchin'.
Come out, wherever you is. Wherever you be, wherever you do. Come out, wherever you am. How's the government looking for you? Stand on, stranger. You scare somebody stiff like that. I'm looking for hillbillies as you were. I ain't saying I am and I ain't saying I ain't. Well, that's close enough for me, because I'm tired of walking myself. The government told me I got to bring in a
character he played was planted in a lot of people's head, and they remember it the rest of their lives as clear as an auto accident.
What's that? Are you an Indian? Yes, man, you don't know. I'm Indian. I got one for the Cherokee, two for Seminole, and I got 4/5 Hiawatha. Wait a minute. Hiawatha was a woman. I can't help it. I got 4/5 of them.
He played in movies with other actors who were as American as Mom's raspberry jello. If they accepted the stereotype, how wrong could it be?
Judge Rickon, I see you someplace.
Well, I'm pretty busy.
Yes, but I just want to ask if you cared about it.
Hear about what?
About over at my house night before last.
Another baby?
Yes, you sure guessed it. You heard?
What's his name?
Oh, we call him L.R. Live Rigby Livingston.
Named him after me, did you?
Yes, Live Rigby. I told my wife yesterday, I said, honey, I know Judge sure gonna be gratified.
Well, of course, I appreciate the honor.
Yes,
I suppose a compliment and I ought to do something for you.
yes, that's what I thought.
You come over to my place tomorrow and I'll give you a job.
Yeah.
Raking leaves.
I asked you for what?
All-American little Shirley Temple played a lot of parts that involved her with black actors. She was always real nice to them.
James Henry, you always do it wrong.
This is an imitation step and fetch it named Willie Best with Shirley.
Come on, Miss Virgie. I just won't budge. I'll show them I'm
The cute little white girl was brave and strong in the face of danger. And the big black man was stupid and cowardly.
What are you afraid of them for?
Oh, honey, child, them Yankees is mighty powerful. They can even change the weather.
Yes?
Whenever they come around, I never know whether it's winter or summer. I'm shivering and sweating at the same time.
James Henry. Serve these cookies to Master Harold and wipe his chin.
Yes, ma'am, Miss Bird.
She was good to them and they were good to her. Sort of a master and pet relationship.
How would you like to see Uncle Billy dance?
All right, James, let's get going, son.
This is Bill Bojangles Robinson, one of the great ones. But if he wanted to work and dance, he had to come into a picture through the servants' entrance. Shirley was good to children, too. They loved their little mistress, and she treated them real good,
Look, Sally Ann.
just like they were equals.
Miss Virgie, please, ma'am. We all done come here to wish him many happy returns. That's it. Many happy
And what do they do now? It continues. Think through the music industry. What do you think all these rappers are? It's the same old thing. The sad thing is, they don't see themselves. I mean, they may be beginning to now, but how can you not see this? You're still being used even more so now, I would say, because what? The times that we're in, you got to understand that after this period where this was made in 68, a lot of Jakes were, going to school, especially by the end of the 70s. And then as a result, this whole college thing changed where, you hear people older than myself say, well, we didn't have to do all that. You could have one job and go to school, get your degree and all that. Well, late 70s, they started this shit now where it's just, you're in debt. I mean, because why? A lot of us were going to school. So then in the 80s, they started that crack shit. You know, everything is designed to keep us from prospering in this country. And still, a lot of our people are blinded to that. They still hold on to that. Oh, you can make it. You know, you just have to work harder. Well, no one can work harder than a slave. And we've been over here so long, and it's become so clear, or at least it should have by now. But a lot of our people are blinded. And that's what we're out there on the highways and byways trying to tell you. This was not for us. This was meant for our punishment. All right?
I suppose it might have surprised a lot of Hollywood producers to know a scene like that could actually make a lot of people, mostly black, sick to their stomach. This is a lot of fun, isn't it? The newsreels that were shown along with feature films knew a good thing when they saw one. They helped keep all the black cats in their place. Nobody black ever did anything very newsy in a newsreel. They did things like eat watermelon in watermelon eating contests. Then another favorite for the newsreel cameraman was to film people throwing things at them. Good sport. Some college football publicity man decided this was a good idea.
Man.
And they were a lot of very funny golf pictures. If you weren't black, they were funny, I guess.
Lie down. That's right out of your mouth.
Don't miss, boss, don't miss.
Well, you keep still, see? Otherwise, you'll have flour in your room.
This fucking shit.
Oh, boy. Oh, wait.
Everything suggested the black man was nothing. Hollywood adopted a sort of British attitude toward black natives of other countries. They were always sneaking around the bushes, you know, carrying stuff on their head. White men weren't supposed to get caught sweating. I've seen a picture called Prestige, and it stated the colonial attitude.
Don't let it break, Andre. Take to him your race for a wedding gift. The prestige of the white man. That means everything you stand for, and it is the only weapon you two will have. Prestige. But it is enough to preserve you.
Yes, sir. And I'll try to remember it. If you'll kiss me.
Even though most non-white natives of any place were savages in films, it often pleased white producers to endow a few chosen blacks with the virtue of great loyalty to him, the white man. Here's one defending Anne Harding to the death. There was always one loyal and true black man who would do anything for his master. Some of them were wonderful people. You know, if you really get a good one. Mostly, though, Negroes were not heroes. They were bit part servants, railroad porters.
Watch your step, sir. Now, this is your destination, folks.
They made very good chauffeurs. Looked good in their caps.
Good morning, Colonel, sir.
And they were great at serving all kinds of drinks.
That cough of yours stays with you like poor relation.
What's that you got there, Libby?
Your sassafras tea.
Wherever there was a thirsty master, there were they also. They played Aunt Jemima.
I don't know if I can stretch one small chicken, but as long as the water's running, we'll have soup enough.
Lottie, will you take Kay upstairs, wash all that goo off her face, and give her a good...
And one question they never answered. When the Negro woman was taking care of the white woman's kids, who was taking care of hers? They did all kinds of odd jobs around picture like walking horses. When they weren't walking the horses, they were out back playing craps, of course. Recreation. They met people at the station before their masters.
Is you folks,
We come all the way from Ireland. Mr. Milford's expecting us. Mr. Milford.
Yes'm, you is which I'm looking for. I'm Mr. Milford's boy.
His boy, you say?
Yes, sir. Murphy's the name, sir.
Did you say Murphy?
Yes, Mrs. Murphy. They calls me Walking Murphy.
Walking Murphy?
Yes, sir. Most of us Murphys down here just sit. I walk.
They make wonderful servants, all kinds in pictures. Dumb but loyal.
Jack, isn't it a beautiful night? I just love parties, don't you?
I beg your pardon?
Thank you kindly. Yes? Hello? Oh, this is the Barragan residence.
Things were getting pretty tough during the 30s. A good thing for a lot of black actors was that they made a movie called The Green Pastures with, like they say, a cast of thousands. It gave a lot of people work, but it had all the old stereotyped characters. It was clever and funny and all black. But it was a white man's picture.
I the Indian. Henry, you sure got the prettiest wings.
Oh, they just my old ones.
Cigar, gentlemen, cigar. Just a bit, sir. Cigar, gentlemen, cigar. Oh, Lord, the smokehouse is empty. Oh, Lord, let me get them groceries. Oh, Lord, let me see that little six. Wham! Come on, you gonna feed me or not? Hey!
Well, you just a little boy, gambling and sinning and chewing tobacco like you was your own pappy. And you've been drinking Sonny Kick Mammy wine, too. You gamblers ought to be ashamed of yourself leading this boy to sin.
Well, he's the best crapshoot in town.
Find my mammy, do more than I can.
While Hollywood was turning out films, radio came along and decided to get in on it, too. Two white fellows from Chicago invented two black characters they named Amos and Andy. They played their parts on the radio for 30 years. This is them doing their bit.
Well, Brother Crawford looks pretty good since he's been here at Palm Springs, don't he? Yeah, looks like his wife done beat him on.
When radio moved over to let television in, Amos and Andy went with it. These two white cats couldn't play Amos and Andy where you could see them, so what they did was they had a black cast. The cast was different, but the stereotypes were the ones that the white people had come to know and love. They were shady characters with money.
Well, I got the books right here, and they're open to each and every brother complete inspection. Get your hands off of that thing there. So you want to see the financial books, huh?
Yeah.
Well, there he is. There he is. You done see them. And the meeting is tonight.
They were still slow and lazy.
Are you sure they are not here? Oh, yes, they told me so themselves. Have them report to our office right away.
I sure tell him, all right.
I gotta see this first.
They had trouble with the English language. Misused words a lot.
And Mr. Brown, my new secretary here, ain't gonna have no time for no extracurricular activities.
And I'm telling you now, as long as you have that secretary in your office, I'm going to work as a secretary myself.
Oh, give me an ultimatum, huh? I'm putting my foot down.
They had trouble with women. And it was always the women who were dominant.
Come on, Herman.
Mostly black actors aren't.
Again, what has changed? It's so sad. Hey, I'm going to leave it there. I've gone over 50 minutes here. Of course, I'll post the link to the video. It's got like 17 more minutes of the video remaining. But in any case, you can see, you have to wonder, all those years after this, you can see this guy took a turn for the worse. Hey, Hollywood, you know, gotta stay away. Hey, so with that, shalom.